All right, everybody, welcome back. I was out yesterday, technical difficulty, sorry about that, but this is the Along the Watchtower podcast. I am your host, LM Walker, and yeah, there's still a bunch of bullshit related to Trump going on, but we're going to try and sift through that because, we want to talk about China. Can I say that on YouTube? We want to talk about the beer bug. We want to talk about censorship. We have to get to Gina Carano. As a nerd, I feel like I owe her that much. And we'll get to a bunch of stuff. I don't really, I'm trying to close the gap of the monologue, really, unless I really feel like I have something to say. And what I have to say is related to Gina Carano, so we will get right into it today. I mean, what I have to say is about a lot of stuff. But, and today's date. Today is Thursday, February 11th, 2021. Just in case, you weren't aware, you've been sleeping in a dumpster, eating food from, the thrown out stuff from Red Lobster, whatever. Cheddar biscuits all the way. So let's see here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. Always trying to do better, get better, be better. So here we go. Gina Carano, loved her character on The Mandalorian. She, as far as I've read, has never said anything overtly offensive. She's never gone out of her way to say, "Oh my God, I hate trans people and they should." "Oh my God, I feel like." Nope. She's literally her entire time, her entire stance, her entire point has always been from the perspective of being able to say how she feels, and what she's said and what she's always said is that people should not be censored because they've spoken their piece, which is the irony, because she's never actually taken a negative stance against any of these groups that have claimed her to be a bigot, that have claimed this and that. That's the irony of all this. She's never said anything overtly transphobic. She's never said anything homophobic, never said anything hateful against anybody. The only thing she's ever pointed out is that cancel culture is dangerous. And the inherent nature of pointing at someone and saying, "Hey, you said or did something from 20 years ago. You obviously are this same person now," without identifying whether they are. This is what I'm talking about. This is what happens when communication breaks down. You can point at something someone did, and I'm not suggesting that for example, we look at a career racist and just suddenly forgive him and turn the other cheek. But I'm saying we have to be mature adults and understand that there is an emotional spectrum. And I'm not suggesting this is just about racism or transphobia or anything. This is about everything, right? Take a look at the prison industrial complex. That's exactly what it is. But it's supposed to be for not rehabilitation, because that's rehab, but what's the term they used? Incarceration is not for reform. There's no reform that goes on. Okay, it's not like they put an emphasis inside a prison for programs like GED, for law programs. I mean, for Christ's sakes, in California, under Kamala Harris, okay, they successfully restricted the ability of prisoners who obtained their fire licenses or became firefighters within prison and were able to be a part of the fire guard for California to become firefighters after they got out of prison, right? The whole idea is supposed to be to help you become a better person, in the hopes that you become a better person, yet obviously that's not where they strive for. Well, take that apparatus and apply that to all of society, where now everyone at any point can point at someone in their entire lifetime and say, "Well, hey, you've done this happened, you felt this way, and you should lose everything because of it." Now, again, I'm not suggesting that people should be just immediately forgiven for the transgressions that they've committed. That's not the idea. The idea is to look at life as a spectrum. People keep telling us that people are on a spectrum, that everything, that gender and love, and yes, I agree. Everything is on a spectrum. Things are and aren't definitive, if that makes any sense. I've spoken about this on the cast before. People say, "Live your truth," and it's like, I agree, but understand that truth only applies but so far, that there is an objective reality that doesn't give a flying what you think. But then but at the same time, collectively it does. Collectively, if we come to the conclusion on something, we then have an effective change on the reality in front of us. I hope that makes sense. Let me go over it again. And Alan Moore does a great job with this in Promethea, where the whole idea of money disappears because people stop really they stop exchanging everything through currency and start utilizing, the way they used to, through trade, through jobs, things like that, exchanges. All right. It's a great graphic novel. Alan Moore is a man of many skills, a true silver tongue, if there was to be one. Great writer. He did V for Vendetta. He did Watchmen. But I digress. The point is that we collectively give value to things, right? So it's not just me thinking that something sucks. We all have to think that something sucks, and like a pimple, we squeeze it out of society at large, and there you go. That's how societal changes happen, right? Collectively. There you go. That being said, let's read what she actually said, okay? Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. This is true. We know this. The Gestapo, just like the Stasi in Russia later on under the Soviet Russia, turned neighbor against neighbor, right? So we know that. We know that not Joseph Goebbels, but not Heinrich Himmler. Who was the doctor? We ended up using him. Joseph Mengele. He did live experiments and stuff like that. Well, they also conducted the SS psychological experiments, making Jews like clean up the Jewish bodies from the chambers, the death chambers, and things like that, making them like eat each. It's a whole thing. You should look at the psychological warfare that the Nazis committed. And then subsequently, the scientists that we then grabbed from the war-torn Germany right before the Nazi Germany collapsed and brought them over to America. It wasn't just rocket scientists under Operation Paperclip that were brought over, like Warner von Braun and so on. So to continue the comment, because history is edited, most people, because history is written by the winners, Orwell, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first had to make their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. We talk about this. When you eliminate the lines of communication, what do you have left? Expatriation or ostracization, incarceration, or elimination. Okay? How is this, or how is that any different from hating someone for their political views? And ultimately, while I was talking about the lifespan of a person, the mistakes that they could possibly have made throughout their life, and then that happening, what she's referring to is the ostracization that I talk about literally every cast that's happening, right? The polarization, right? The difficulty, the almost impossibility for neighbor to speak to neighbor on a serious basis, to have a dialogue about what's happening in this country and how we must now, and we are moving forward, and what direction that will be and what that will look like for all of us, not some of us, not a special few of us, okay, all of us, okay? And that's always been her thing, that we shouldn't cancel each other because we disagree. We should hear those disagreements out and figure out where we can come to. And I mean, that's ultimately how people should communicate. I don't understand why encouraging dialogue has always been an issue for sex, really. And it's generally a Twitter related thing. It's always social media, the cancel culture that this crops up on and then causes this backlash effect. Now, mind you, in some cases, like with Armie Hammer, I think his name is, he's a fucking freak, and that's legitimate. That's completely legitimate. But people have always had a problem with Gina just saying like, no, I don't need to. I've never given you any reason to suggest I'm transphobic. So why is it that I'm being attacked because I'm not putting something that I've never needed into my profile? Like, I do your thing. Why am I being attacked because I'm suggesting that we should not turn on each other, but listen to each other as long, again, as I always say, as long as we're not encouraging violence, inciting hate, we should hear each other. I don't understand why, like, we live in a two-party system, but essentially we do live in a one-party crony establishment, plutocratic, oligarchical system. That's essentially what it is. Outsiders beware. It's amazing. It's amazing. All I ever do is sit up here and encourage dialogue. Let me hear out what you got to say. Lay out your points. I got mine. You got yours. Like, is there even actual like debates happening anymore? I don't know. It's this need to be in an echo chamber and have this constant dopamine hit that's just bothersome. I mean, like I said, follow policy, Follow principle, not a person, politician, or political party. I voted for Tulsi Gabbard, and I definitely do not approve of her bill that was in support of Title IX in relation to in relation to the government funding for sports that support trans people being in them, participating. And I don't think it's the government's place to regulate whether a sports program allows trans women or men in it. Like, if that's what they allow, and that's like I said at the top of the show, that's society squeezing out things it doesn't like. Here's the thing that often, I actually think I said it the day before yesterday. I forgot who said this quote, but it was like, democracy is like two wolves and a sheep fighting over or deciding what's going to be for dinner. A republic is giving the sheep a sword, right? It is to arm those who are supposedly inconsequential or fall through the cracks. And so we don't have a fully democratic mob rule for a reason. Just because more people, and here's the thing, at the same time, you want to follow populist policy, things like prison reform, a lot of the four-prison industrial complex being taken down altogether, things like ending foreign wars, things like Medicare for all, things like $15 minimum wage, things like a $2,000 or more checks, things like recurring checks, so on and so forth. Oh, that's my phone. 1 second. That song is "Rushing Back" by Flume, by the way. It's a great song. But yeah, those things are populist and popular for a reason. We need them. They're for the betterment of people. At the same time, there were lots of things throughout the history of this country that supposedly the majority of this country supported that weren't entirely humane, to say the least. So I will leave that there. That's the opening monologue. That's how I feel about it. It's very unfortunate. At the same time, let me give the other end of this. She's doing. I don't know why she's trolling these people. She could have stopped at any point. Like, and here's the thing: she wasn't trolling them by saying it, but she should have known how it was going to be. She had to have known. She can't be a complete buffoon. I mean, perhaps she is. I'm not here to make presumptions. I don't know the lady, but that kind of boggles the mind. We'll talk about this in a minute. Like, similar to Trump, right? He's like, he waits. One thing, I said this actually the other show. What does this man say? This fucking idiot. We're still here talking about him. He said mob violence goes against everything I believe in, right? He said that after the fact, and he said a whole bunch of other stuff during the rally, right? I'm not supporting the claims that are being made, but he said a whole bunch of other stuff that did not diminish the animosity of the rally. Could have said, done anything, could have said that, right? But didn't. Just like in her case, she could have said and or done nothing and instead chose this. My friend always says, stand up, get shot. I mean, I get what she was trying to do. No need to do it, right? I mean, I think perhaps she might have been aiming for it. She had to have been. There's nothing else makes sense. It's dumb. But it is what it is at this point, So what are you gonna do? Moving along, we still have to cover the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. People do things to incite you. They write things in a particular way to elicit certain emotions, certain interests, right? To keep you reading, to keep you, like, again, Gina, I think she had to have known. This is stupid. But I really want to cover this in detail. So to give it the time that I feel like it deserves, I'm not going to cover it today. It might be a separate video altogether, but we're gonna keep it moving, gonna keep it trucking. Mr. Yang is leading in the polls by like 11%. He's at 28, and the most leading candidate next to him is the Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. He came in at 17%. This is be wary of automation. We need UBI Andrew Yang. This is came so close but got cannibalized by his own party. Andrew Yang tried to forbid him from being a part of the debate. Andrew Yang. So it's very interesting to see him rise up in the ranks to this point. And as far as I can recall, he hasn't compromised very much, if at all. But this is yet to be seen. So let's read what The Hill says. Polls find Yang with a big lead. And they'll probably talk about this new. They're going to talk about the new weird way. They have a new way of voting that's happening for the first time ever. It's choice rank voting. Okay, so what happens is that there's like 5 candidates, and I guess the 5th candidate will be eliminated, and the votes will then be evenly distributed amongst the 4 remaining voters. So while he's leading right now, okay, the candidate with the least amount of votes distributed, with him at 28% and leading, that might not give him enough to 50%, which is what you need in order to win. So let's read right now. Andrew Yang holds a double-digit lead in the Democratic primary for New York mayor, according to a new poll. That would be so fascinating. The poll from Fontes Advisors and Core Decision Analytics show Yang notching 28% support among likely Democratic voters. His closest rival, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, came in at 17%, while New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer finished third with 13%. Sean Donovan, a former Obama administration official, and activist Maya Wiley tied for 4th place, scoring 8% in each poll. No other candidate included in the survey broke 2%. Another 19% of respondents said they are still undecided. Yang, a tech entrepreneur, gained a national profile during his unsuccessful bid in 2020 when he campaigned on the idea of UBI that would give everyone $1,000 a month. That profile appears to have given him an early advantage in name recognition, of course. 84% of respondents said they have heard of Yang, giving him the highest identification of any candidate in the crowded primary field. Stringer, for instance, finished second on the front with 66% saying they've heard, and that's a vast difference, 22%. People know the name, Yang Gang, man. Let's hope they don't talk about that whipped cream thing again. That was very weird. He let some guy spray whipped cream in his mouth. You can go look it up probably. 30% of respondents said that preventing the spread of COVID-19 and distributing vaccines was the single most important issue for the next mayor. Another 19% said that reopening the economy and creating jobs were the most pressing challenge. Yeah, New York has been decimated. The city has been decimated. The economy, the personal toll, the inability to move, to function, the restrictions on, exercising your religious freedom, your cultural freedoms, to do anything, to be a person, to have that sort of mental balance to express yourself. It's killing us, man. I was going to cover that. That's an article by Glenn Greenwald talking about, it's called the journalistic tattletale and censorship industry suffers several well-deserved blows. I might cover that tomorrow as well because that's a lengthy one. Trump will be banned forever. Twitter says, even if he runs for office again. So that means that if he were to somehow, if the devil were to rise to power in all of the cosmos and allow this man to successfully not only run but successfully win, deep breath, and to become president again, they would not restore his account. See, the point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to illustrate how much power a business has over a federal agency, let alone over the executive branch, over the presidents of the United States. Now you're thinking, wow, it's just Twitter. We talk about this. We talk about the irrelevance and significance of social media. The ability to be able to reach literally anyone and everyone, anywhere, anytime, versus how easily they could simply turn it off and remember that it's not about the dopamine hit you get from someone liking you or the echo chamber that's created by someone agreeing with you. It's about like finding some sensibility, some sense of truth, some semblance of reality of what's going on. That requires engagement on your own level, not just with people or not solely with people or by people, not just looking on social media, but going and researching things, being interested. Anyway, I digress. Let's go over this briefly here. Independent reads, Donald Trump will be banned forever. even if he runs again, Twitter has said. Mr. Dorsey, he's also simultaneously pointed out the power that the Silicon left has, which is ironic. Yeah, it's just funny. The company's chief financial officer said in the wake of its latest results that the ban is permanent, whatever he does. When are removed from the platform, okay, copy edit. When you are removed from the platform, you're removed from the platform. Whether you're a commentator, you're a CFO, or you're a former or current public official, remember our policies are designed to make sure that people are not inciting violence, and if anybody does that, we have to remove them from the service, and our policies don't allow people to come back. I wonder if I know there's been other officials. Have there been other? But at the highest level though, like that's at the highest level. Then again, there's only been, I believe, 3 presidential Twitters, right? Barack Obama's, right? Yeah, Barack Obama's, Donald Trump's, and now Joe Biden's. Yeah, Jack Dorsey. Okay, whatever. So the impeachment. So it's going down. It's going to be for naught. It is definitely cathartic for the Democratic base to do. I'm not sure entirely if the progressive base feels like it's important, given all that they are trying to get accomplished, the hills that they're having to surmount. They've just gotten over the first one, right? So we are going to see budget reconciliation occur. Now, what goes into it is now what's we're worried about. But that's another, we'll cross that bridge. So they've crossed that. They've gotten over that hill. So the point is like, are progressives concerned about it? I don't know. I'm not sure. However, mainstay hardline Democrats are interested in this. Moderate Democrats don't want anything to do with it. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen, right? Senate leadership announced on Monday that they have reached a deal for the framework of the impeachment trial. This is an older article, right? Because it hasn't started yet. I'm telling you, I got a stack of old stuff. We got to go through the timeline. So they figured it out. The first day started. I actually haven't seen the concurrent footage. I have seen, however, the statements made by Trump's lawyer. My God, did the guy like acid? Did he have shroom chocolates? He reminded me of people that I've met in California who have engaged in just an excessive amount of psychedelic use, and just like kind of they have a point that they're trying to reach, but it is the most loquacious thing trying to get to it. And so I've seen excerpts of that. And then I've seen the compilation video that the prosecution lawyer came out with, and it is compelling. Actually, it's playing now. Don't mind that. It's playing now, and like it is an intense video. Now, mind you, it's somewhat skewed, but really it's kind of not. And a lot of what they're portraying, the language that's supposed to be what's inside of is again still pretty tame and pretty commonplace language. And actually, there's a New York Post article somewhere down here. Yeah. Old unearthed tweets. So Jamie Raskin, Joe Biden saying fight like hell. I often talk about Maxine Waters and her nonsense. Yeah. That's because that's commonplace political rhetoric. Okay. The problem here is that while he said that, he did not also say mob violence goes against everything I believe in. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words right there would have absolved him. Not to, and again, I'm not. This is not a condemnation or an admiration of the man. I'm just pointing out the reality of it. Like you're playing a game of rhetoric, and you got too hot. Shit got you fucking. I like the phrase better. I forgot which Democrat said it, but he said he pointed like a loaded gun and just walked away or something along those lines. And like basically that's what he did. That's what he did. The same rhetoric anyone else uses, but without any sort of temperament. It is fascinating because the reality is there's no direct incitement to violence there. There's no hate speech. He didn't break any laws. He was exercising his First Amendment. That's why this trial's not going to go anywhere, and that's why everyone knows it. But this is still necessary as a symbolic process, and that I can understand. Trump was quite displeased with his impeachment defense team. But that was my opener to it, because I hadn't really been paying attention, because like I said, nothing's gonna come of it. But I find it amusing, and then I went and watched videos, and the guy's just babbling on about how he knows good senators, and that the American people already decided in exercising their own agency in good faith that they can decide to change presidents if they wanted to, and they did. And he kept doing that, and they did. In good faith, they decided, and they did. This guy's a fucking idiot. It was hilarious. So that happened, and so then the GOP got all pissed off, right? Because Trump is just like cleaved the party, probably in thirds, we'll say. Something like 36% of the party or so seems to still, like, we saw him go to Arizona and get that lady elected to the head of the Arizona State Republican Party. We've seen his support in MTG. We recently saw Sarah Palin come out of the woodwork. I mean, she was on Piers Morgan, mind you, but still, who even knew she was still like a thing, like a viable thing to bring on. She's not a thing, she's a person, but you know what I mean, as a political pundit of any kind, a viable political operative to bring on. I can see Russia from my house. She probably actually can, but nonetheless. See, this is about optics. It's not the truth of the matter, it's how it looks. But this pissed off the GOP. The GOP castigates terrible job by Trump legal team. Still, Trump's attorney told reporters that he didn't expect any changes to the legal team or its structure of arguments. That's archetypical. Just, keep the train pushing on down into hell. House Democrats, this is from Politico. House Democrats started former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial, this is a few days ago, with a well-executed video and direct speakers. Trump's defense opened with a rambling bit by, that's what I mean, he just like, what the fuck are you talking about? With a rambling bit by lawyer Bruce Castor that conceded the House presentation was well done and their arguments would be answered later. What? The contrast is not lost on the jury. Right, this is when one of the jurors said this, and he was very clear and concise, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've always been talking about. Just look at the reality of it and identify that. There's no need to embellish or hyperbolize. So the juror said this: the House managers were focused, they were organized, they relied upon both precedent, the Constitution, and legal scholars. That's right. They made a compelling argument. President Trump's team were disorganized. They did everything they could to talk about the question at hand, said Senator Bill Cassidy. He's a Republican from LA. And when they talked about it, they kind of glided over, almost as if they were embarrassed of their arguments. I mean, it's not a difficult argument to make. Well, no. Here's the thing. There's a justifiable argument. There's a justifiable argument, and there's a justifiable defense. The problem is that without saying those 8 words, I feel like a jury would press upon it. The problem is that I think this is unprecedented in the impeachment of a president that's not sitting. The caveat to that problem is that actually Trump at one point tweeted out that he suggested himself that they try to impeach Obama after he was out of office. I mean, he's not a legal expert, but I'm just putting everything out there on the table. Like, this idiot he's always sealing his own fate because he talks too fucking much. But just like me. But this idiot mentioned that, hey, you should impeach Obama after the fact. And now here he is in all of its ironic glory being impeached after the fact. And everyone's legal experts are like, well, we don't know if we can legally do this, if we can, convict him of and impeach and convict him as of crimes of a sitting president while he's not president. But I digress. But we live in a day and age in the cult of celebrity. And so a video montage, a too long, didn't read it video montage of here's some words, here's some things that took place, here's some more words, here's some things that took place, without any continuation or context says a lot. And the thing is like, you're not going to get an argument from level-headed people like this guy when he's like, okay, like I understand he didn't, because he's a Republican. So from presumably from his standpoint, or from his jump off point, he's like, all right, well, I understand what took place. Like, he played the rhetoric game, and some shit went down, but he exercised his First Amendment and did not directly call for and incite violence. The problem here is, as I'm always going to say, and I always point this out, what he said too late were those 8 words: mob violence goes against everything I believe in. Had he said that, he would have had deniability, right? Politically, optically, legally. So that left him open legally for this to take place. That's why it's taking place. Whether it's successful is another thing altogether. But then, instead of arguing that point, they're going to, and here's the thing, it's the optics of it, because it doesn't look good trying to argue in defense of what seems like you're arguing in defense of the damage that was done by something they think that you did. Right? Instead of trying to like apologize and take responsibility for it or anything of that nature, it seems like you're trying to justify it. So the optics of that, the politics of that, they don't work. So instead, they took the constitutional route. Oh, well, this is unconstitutional. We don't believe that there is any constitutional legal ability for you to do this. And that's why they said that there's no response. So then when you see that and it's presented, it's like, well, as a juror, what do you just kind of like, well, I mean, I understand what took place, but dude, you're not helping yourself here. What do you expect me to do? So that's where this stands. Cassidy even voted with 55 other senators that the trial should go forward and was not unconstitutional. See? Changing his position from last month. You see? That's what I was saying. There you go. They're fighting the optics. This reminds me kind of the O.J. Simpson trial, where they're not fighting the morality of it, the decency of it. They're fighting the optics of it, and it's just it's madness. It's madness. This is the danger of like this is what happens when no I don't want to say this is what happens. This is okay. Let me phrase it. This is what happens when the like oligarchical bourgeoisie are met like face to face with the proletariat, right? They were showing, and I'm not justifying any of this, but people are desperate, and this has been going. The desperation has only increased over the decades. We can go into the economics of it, yada yada yada. Point is that the situation has reached a critical point once the beer bug arrived, and the argument of the health impact of that's a different discussion altogether, because the government reaction, the economic impact has been devastating, right? And will have long-term repercussions for generations to come, decades to come. That being said, what was already a desperate situation has now become a critical situation, a crisis point. I mean, if you were to remove the technology and place this during, 100 years ago, it's ripe for a revolution. Like, this is really the sort of desperate discontent, not even discontent, malcontent, vicious attitudes that possessed people and crowds and mobs back 100 years ago that caused the French and Russian Revolution. So that being said, the Russian Revolution was 100 years ago, not the French one. That being said, let us keep going. I already pointed that out. But yeah, Trump says mob violence goes against everything I believe in. And it's like, yeah, dude, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. Uh-huh. It's like picking up a grenade. It's like walking. It's like looking. I don't know why, for some reason, this analogy came to mind. I was going to say, it's like looking at a blind man kicking out his cane and saying, well, I didn't think he was actually blind. And it's like, what the fuck do you mean? Yeah. This is the thing. Rhetoric has power. The things that you say has power. I always tell people, words have power. And he wielded the spirit and tenacity of desperate people to his own advantage, and then tried to walk away and say, well, I didn't say go storm I didn't say go and hurt people. I didn't say that. And it's like, yeah, you didn't say that, but you understood exactly how the maneuvering and the influencing of what you were saying was going what it could have led to. Nothing is for certain. Nothing is for certain. But you'd be living in a paracosm if you didn't think that at this critical moment, with all the chatter going on online about something like this happening, that this wasn't going to actually happen. And yeah, so whatever. All right, so now we delve into a bit of partisanship here inside Biden world plan to punish the GOP for opposing COVID relief. There's no need to punish anyone. You just conduct budget reconciliation, just like Trump did regarding budget cuts, and you say, screw you. You don't have to make it malicious. This isn't about, whether or not you get... Nobody cares about bipartisanship anymore. This isn't 1995, bro. Nobody cares if the Republicans get along with the Democrats. It's like, if you have a clear way to achieve a goal that benefits the populace that supports you, fuck all your relationships. This ain't Riverdale, bro. This ain't a CW show, bro. Just get it done. Budget it is baffling how you can have this much, it's like 84% support, Axios, this much support for progressive policies starting at the tippy top, COVID relief. You can have this much support for something and not do it when conversely Republicans didn't even nearly have this much support for tax cuts and got it done anyway. It boggles the mind. It is a game of words and favors that they play on the Hill that screw out everyone. Okay? But as I said, some good news. There's some good news. They have begun budget reconciliation. A few weeks too late, but it's begun. So let's read a little bit of this here from Politico. Democrats are plowing forward with plans to pass a massive COVID-19 relief package, and if Republicans don't join them, they won't forget it. Already there's talks about midterm attack ads portraying Republicans as willing to slash taxes for the wealthy but too stingy to cut checks. It took checks for people struggling during the deadly pandemic. And President Joe Biden's aides are allies vowing not to make the same mistakes as previous administrations going into the midterms. And Republicans there's a gaping power vacuum, as we talked about on Tuesday. Gaping power vacuum forming with Pennsylvania, Ohio. I forgot the other two, but 4 senators are already saying that they're not going to be seeking reelection. So they have to replace these old timers, one of which has been in for 40 years. Replace these old timers. They have a few more battle states. I think they have either 8 or 12 that they have to work out and figure out a viable candidates for these 4 states. And Ohio's a big one. It's a swing state, it's a battleground state for elections, for the federal election. But they got to make sure that they're not Trumpists. They have to make sure that they're not from the vacuum, that third of the GOP right now that is just overzealot, just not, they're crazy people. These actual zealots that are rising to power. Where was I? Oh, yeah. And the confidence is that ultimately it will be successful. They're not making the same mistake as the previous election. They are pulling together plans to make sure that Americans know every dollar delivered and every job kept because of the bill that they're crafting. This is one of those rare instances, maybe not exceedingly rare, but it doesn't happen often, where the best policy perfectly aligns with the politics. That's what everyone is saying. This isn't difficult to seek re-election, do the things that people want. Like, it's not a matter of your base now really diverting, whether it be Republican or Democrat. Everyone from the bayous and the suburbs to the fucking inner city, right? And the rurals, everyone is suffering and no one has a job. 1 million people are filing for unemployment. It's like 700,000 to 1 million people every month are filing for unemployment. All of those people don't have we can go on and on like a Rolodex, keep rolling out these numbers. The reality is that across the board, everyone wants the same thing. They need help. And this is where the politics actually align with the populist policy for everyone's base. If I'm a candidate in 2022 running, says Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat in Pennsylvania and a Biden ally, running for the House or the Senate, I think I'd want to be able to say that we've had a robust COVID bill. We raised the minimum wage. We made progress on healthcare. We've started to make progress on combating climate change and a whole range of issues candidates want to run on. And progressive candidates won on in 2020. This is cognitive dissonance on a on a federal level, on an electoral level, on a grand level among the elite. It reminds me of Snowpiercer, I guess, is the greatest analogy right now, where you would see the sort of disconnect that would happen from those within first class, watching the desperation and the decay, the destitution of the Traileys, the Tailies. I'm sorry, not Traileys, the Tailies. Excuse me. And so this is happening right now. So it started really among the populace, right? This disconnect. And so you had people that were able to get elected by catering to a solid political base that were completely out of touch with the majority of what was going on with people and their despair. And slowly, as that despair with the beer bug reached out and touched everybody, suddenly those who had the means to stay away from it could not no longer, and they understood the destitution, the how it feels to have nothing. And to have everything taken away from you, whether it be from a family member dying, whether it be from losing your job, whether it be from you catching it, whether it be from none of the above in relation to you or your family member having it, but simply you losing something related to the changes that have occurred from the pandemic. And then suddenly, what the majority of people wanted, right, was the same thing as what the political base wanted for these politicians. Now they aligned. The bourgeoisie and the proletariat aligned. And this is where you had the rise of populist progressivism. Now, the difference between populism and progressivism, I guess, is kind of in the name, right? One is at least as far as I'd like to frame it, to cast it, is that, I mean, they're one and the same, but you have Trump populism. There is a solid, grounded base, mainly Republican, but some, as you've seen, moderate Democrats in terms of like economic policy agree with him. So that's why it's dangerous, or at least I feel like I want to, because again, I just got through saying words of meaning, words are powerful. It's dangerous to say like populist and progressive in the same boat here. It's like populist if you're a Republican and progressive if you're a Democrat, but they're both the same thing. So the people want. That's what the people want. So anyway, where were we here? First 100 days. The walk case for limiting eligibility relief checks is wrong. As I've talked about, moderate blue dog Democrats have sought to try and limit the relief bill to make it targeted, right? And they're deficit hawks, and they're kind of, I mean, you know, I've heard them be referred to as extremists, and it is really extreme given that we are in the situation that we are in to try to restrict the ability of people to function vis-a-vis giving them money, especially when we've seen a direct stimulus to people reflects positively in our economy because people take that money, they go out and spend it in retail stores, they buy a bunch of stuff. Yes, I mean, a lot of that stuff is like electronics and TVs and shit like that. A lot of that stuff is also groceries and things like that. But it all, for the most part, is like a direct impact into the economy in a positive sense. And that reflects positively on the ability for businesses to stay open, which reflects on businesses able to keep jobs, which then reflects on people able to keep their jobs, keep their homes, keep their health insurance. It's all interconnected, all right? And then you have jagoffs who like are in the, like Senator Manchin, who's in the poorest, they call him King Manchin, which is disgusting. It's repugnant. He's in one of the, if not the poorest state in the union, West Virginia. And he's one of the leading people trying to get this reduced. And do you really think that there are like hyper conservative, economic, hawks out there right now who don't have jobs, who can't pay bills? Do you think those two go hand in hand? Do you think that makes sense? No, that isn't. So I don't know. He's been in office for like 30-something, 40-something years. So it could be that he is so out of touch that he is unable to realign himself with reality. I don't know, but let's read here. It's February 4th. It's really not, again, old news. And welcome to the first 100. I believe they mean the first 100 days. What is this? This is what are they doing? This is like Okay. So the answer is no, I didn't read this first. I just figured it was an op-ed that was okay. That's what I get. All right, that's what I get. But the point still stands is is that we've been reading articles about blue dog moderate Democrats, and they're not really moderate. They're, I can understand people calling them extremists. It is extreme given the circumstances to want to consider the budget over the people in your own state. And just from a political standpoint, how you figure that taking money out of people's pockets is a way to get you reelected is beyond me. Let's take a look at what the impact would be. The poorest Americans can expect to see a 33% income boost with stimulus checks and tax expansions, new report finds. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy found that the key Democratic provisions will increase the incomes of the poorest Americans by 33%. The key provisions included the $1,400 stimulus check, the expansion of the child tax credit, and the earned income tax credit. The House Ways and Means Committee bill will be marked up this week. This was yesterday. The poorest 20% of Americans can expect to see a nearly 33% boost to their incomes with key Democratic stimulus provisions of the $1,400 stimulus check. In a report released on Tuesday by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, a nonpartisan think tank, the primary elements of the House Ways and Means Committee's draft stimulus bill will likely have significant effects on the poorest Americans. On Monday, the Ways and Means Committee, which is responsible for the largest portion of the overall pandemic relief package, unveiled its bill that called for the $1,400 stimulus check at a $75,000 income threshold and the expansion of the EITC and a fully refundable $3,000 child tax credit. One of the things that I think Republicans, if I recall, one of the things that was in the counter proposal was lowering the threshold to 50. Was it 50,000? They wanted to lower the threshold. And it's just like, this is ridiculous. It is staggeringly ridiculous. But anyway, in regards to the effects of those provisions on the poorest American quintile, the ITEP report found that the $1,400 stimulus checks would increase the average income by 20%. The proposed child tax credit expansion would increase incomes by an average of 9.7% and would provide around $116 billion to families with children for that year. And the EITC expansion would increase incomes by an average of 3% and provide around $16 billion to childless workers. All three provisions have been sources of debate in Congress. Progressive lawmakers have been pushing to ensure the income threshold does not fall below $75,000 to ensure struggling families that are not left out of needed relief. Exactly, yeah. And lawmakers from both sides of the aisle drafted variations of the child tax credit that ranged in the amount of monthly benefits to be provided. Other elements included providing $400 weekly unemployment benefits through the end of August and stabilizing pensions for more than 1 million Americans. The bill is expected to be marked up this week. Oh my God, Creator help us. I mean, look at it this way. They were debating the previous stimulus that we just recently got, the $600 stimulus. They were debating it in the lead up to an election. They were using it as a maneuvering piece in the lead up to a presidential election. Now that we no longer have that presidential election and we basically have them cornered in a March timeframe, because that's what they kept saying, all right? They've already backed down on $2,000 to $1,400. We've already seen them back and forth in the idea of budget reconciliation not being used, but thankfully enough, we got over that. So we can knock that one down. But now we're seeing this debate happen, this occurrence where if there isn't a progressive push for candidates to support everything I just listed, right, we are not going to see it happen. I was honestly surprised that budget reconciliation, that they chose that route. But the counter proposal was just absurd. And here's the thing. Biden went on and talked about minimum wage probably not going to make it. And it's like, my word, if you don't have the guy in the lead who's supposedly commander-in-chief supporting this, how do you think it's going to work? Like, if you it is amazing. But in terms of stimulus, let's just go over this. When could $1,400 stimulus checks go out? Here's what we know so far. They're going to want me to register. So at this rate, it's looking like a third round of stimulus could be arriving before the first day of spring. On Thursday, Nancy Pelosi told reporters that the House hopes to pass its massive economic package, including $1,400 checks, by the end of February. and certainly have it on the president's desk in time to offset the March 14 deadline when some unemployment benefits expire. So there's that little update. On the end of the show here, I was thinking about going into some China news because there's some weird stuff. Biden quietly nixes Trump-era rule combating Chinese communist-funded propaganda centers. Yeah, you're like, wouldn't he want to fight Chinese propaganda that could possibly be infiltrating or could be pervading our educational institutions? I would be inclined to agree with you. I found it very strange as well. But we are running out of time, so I think I'm going to cover some of this COVID stuff. We are beginning to see reopening. AMC, hold. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just saying that we need to start looking. Everyone is looking now towards the future. We already covered this like over a month ago, where the WHO said that that COVID is endemic, is more likely than not endemic. Moderna CEO has already said, this is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So Cuomo, large NY venues can reopen February 23rd with testing. Now, this is what I was saying. Barclays to host fans that day. This is what I was saying. They're not going to make it, unless the mortality rate increases with different variations. Like if we get, because, we still haven't seen an update on whether or not the UK or South African version B117, the B117 is the UK variant. The B117 variant of COVID is deadlier. We know that it is more transmissible, but we don't necessarily see a high mortality rate, and we won't until some time passes. So until we see different variants that have a higher mortality rate, we're not going to see a federal mandate, right? Because I forgot which amendment that would be. There's a constitutional argument in trying to federally mandate what people can or cannot put into their bodies. That includes vaccinations. But I'll probably cover that tomorrow, actually. But the point is, what we're seeing now, we're seeing the flower unveil. We're seeing it bud and spread open. We're seeing different areas, different sectors of the economy begin to open. And so in terms of vaccinations, they're going to force businesses to either have their patrons and employees have a negative test or be vaccinated. And so now we're seeing the first phase right now is testing. And I'm fine with that. Like it's so easy to get a test, and then there's this the COVID business is booming. It is a booming, okay? And there's a huge industry for test kits and diagnostics. And so they have like 15-minute test kits out there, spit kits. They have point of care kits out there. You can go and know your results within a couple hours. There's businesses out there where they're prototyping laser diodes that you can attach to your phone. So it's like an external attachment, like a peripheral device. You attach it to your phone, and that way you can test. And it's like, Songbird is coming, minus the super deadly COVID variant. But they had technology like that where every morning you would scan, and it's federally funded and utilized. They'd scan you, and via your temperature and other metrics, they determine whether or not you had COVID. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I digress. Life is coming. Have hope. Fear not. And just get engaged. Get involved. Have dialogues with people. Please do not, no one knows anything. We're just all trying to figure it out, okay? Empty your cup. But that's the end of the show here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. And as always, be well to yourself and to each other. Take care.